Welcome to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif on Rogers TV Barrie. And Mike, it has been a little while since we did a local State of the Union or update. And so with that in mind, we thought, why not? Let's invite somebody in who's in the know. And with that, we are fortunate to have join us two-time city councillor for the City of Barrie down in Ward 9, southeast corner or southeast area of the City of Barrie, as well as current chair of the Downtown Barrie BIA and chair of the Corporate and Finance Services Committee. That's a mouthful, a lot on your plate. We welcome Councillor Sergio Morales to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Sergio. And right off, I'm going to ask you a question. If you tune into the show, you know that one topic that keeps coming back again and again, because it is a serious topic, and that is the subject of housing availability and housing affordability. You know that this is something that's top of mind for the City of Barrie. So I'll ask you right off the bat, is the city on track to meet its housing targets and supply needs as far as you're concerned?
Mike, the city needs to do more. It's point blank. Supply, we are not meeting the guidelines that we are setting for ourselves, not only affordability, but just units in general. And then every single year that goes passing, homeowners know this. Your house has gone up maybe $80,000, maybe $100,000. If you're a renter, you know this. You've seen the rents. You don't want to be renovated out of your unit. And if you're a person waiting to buy a house, your mortgage person is calling you every couple of months, telling you that you need to save more than they told you 3 months ago because the goalposts need moving. So we're doing a good amount of work, but we have to do a lot more.
Yes. So with that in mind, though, I mean, listen, first and foremost, there is an element of politics out there. You want to do ribbon cuttings and you want to show when great things happen, you want to celebrate them. But the reality is, we know it. The rest of the world knows it. You're not meeting the targets. And I can say the same thing. We did set some hefty targets. You're not. Plain and simple. The rest of the world knows it. But the question is, you can't do it on your own as a municipality. You probably need some other supports from other levels of government. The question is there the fight? Is there the willpower? Or are we tiptoeing around not wanting to make waves with other levels of government, et cetera? At the end of the day, you're not getting the job done. What are we doing? What do we need to do? How are you going to do it differently?
So the main priority that the City of Barrie can use to address this is increasing supply. And that means increasing density. That's not an easy conversation with residents that live in Allendale, where they are in your former ward, or in the old East End up in Ward 1. When you're proposing taking lots that have single detached homes and putting in density, it doesn't go over well. And right now, the zoning powers are with the municipality, and the province is telling us their mandates on how we have to grow, but not giving us the teeth or downloading those responsibilities. And you have hesitant councils, and it's not just Barrie, it's around the province, that maybe don't hit those density targets. And that is one of the many factors why prices continue to spiral up, because supply is not being created.
Well, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, if that's one of the primary loggerheads, what do you see as improving that transition there, where properties which have been earmarked and traditionally been single family residential have the potential to be converted over to multi-residential? What steps do you think could happen there at any and all levels of government that would ease up on that, make that happen better?
At the provincial level of government, it would be very effective if the provincial government uploaded a lot of the zoning powers away from municipalities.
Yeah.
Because when the province is outlining how municipalities need to grow, they need to also be in charge of those things. Realistically, that's very optimistic. Some people say that those powers should remain in municipalities. They have a right to dictate how they grow. But the reality is, when a neighborhood in Midtown Toronto takes a development proposal that should be 1,500 units, and they water it down to 300 units because of NIMBY pressures and opposition, that has a ripple effect from Midtown to North York to Vaughan to Bradford, Bradford to Barrie. And when you
Yeah,
have
I'm
those,
going to challenge that. I'm going to challenge that because yes, it's nice to have, it would be a nice idea to have the same level of government in charge of all things in that regard. But if you do take away that power, you know, how many times has a municipal councillor said, well, we are the ones who are most closely related to our residents. We're the ones who have the finger on the pulse. Somebody down in Queen's Park or somebody on Parliament Hill in Ottawa has no clue what's going on a daily basis locally in the community. What about the alternative of just saying, hey, listen, you know what? When an organization stands up and puts their name on letterhead, pretending to represent the will of the people, but they don't actually represent the will of the people. It's only 1 or 2 people writing the letter, or maybe it's 50 people or 100 people writing the letter. That's still a far cry away from the balance of people who make up a city of 150,000 people. Everybody knows that housing prices are through the roof. And there is a way, and there are many municipalities that have shown a way to blend existing with new, heritage with modern. Why can't a municipal council decide to get the teeth themselves and just deal with it internally?
The political will powers of municipal governments around the province have shown that they have those powers and they haven't delivered on density. This is not a very unique issue.
No, it's not.
If they have the will, they currently have the way, but they don't get the results done, it's time to have a very awkward, and maybe it's why you had me on the show, I say it like it is, it's time to have an awkward conversation about uploading those to a level of government who's serious about hitting density targets, who's serious about preventing urban sprawl, that's serious about addressing climate change through proper growth strategies.
Yeah.
Ideally, our municipalities would be doing this. But when you see developments in all municipalities, let's say they should be 12 stories, but at the end of the process, once it's approved, it gets dwindled down to 4 stories. That's not helpful for anybody, current homeowners, future homeowners, and their children.
So when we come back from the break, we just saw in the news recently that the current president of the college mentioned that the pressure is off student housing, and therefore we don't really need to worry about it. And I'm kind of paraphrasing. I realize I am. I don't want your response now. I want to go to a break. I want to give you a second to think about that. And how does that play into what our current reality is, and what do we take away from that, and what is a response? But let's go to break real quick, and we'll be right back with more from Councillor Sergio Morales, Barrie's Ward 9 councillor, on the topic of housing availability and affordability on Hitting Home with Mike and Arif.
Welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif, and we're here with Ward 9 Councillor and BIA Chair Sergio Morales. And looking at that first segment, the big takeaway from that for me was wants and needs with regards to housing in our municipality don't always align. And we've seen some challenges there, and we've seen some resistance to growth and change from residents. It's always a difficult subject, and it's always uncomfortable when your neighborhood is advancing from what you've gotten used to over the past decade or two or longer. One area where there is some tension, if you want to call it that, is East End Barrie, in and around the college. I'll put the question to you because student housing is something that you are passionate about, Sergio, and it was recently said by the president of Georgian College that we have a surplus of student housing, so there really is no need to build any new housing at this time. Would you and do you agree with that comment there?
I don't agree.
No.
Point blank. And I don't think anybody in the East End would agree with that. I think if you knocked on hundreds of doors in the neighborhood, they would tell you quite different reality. And that reality, and I know it well, I grew up in the East End. I currently live in the East End. It's no secret. And I understand that transition in the last 15 plus years. And the reality is Georgian College increased their enrollment by thousands of students, both domestic and international, and did not increase their on-campus student housing beds, call them units, by a proportionate amount. They were already behind as it was. They didn't increase supply. And here's what has got us here. The private sector did not respond building more units. Yeah. There was couple, Foundry on Georgian Drive and London Corp on Duckworth. But besides that, the private sector did not respond. And as a result, when you increase demand and you keep supply constant, and supply is more or less constant within a radius outside Georgian College, so houses being built in the South End don't count. They're not realistic for students to live in. You're going to push prices up. And you are now pitting students against families who are looking to rent. And investors come in because of the increase in price, go, hey, I can get $3,000+ in rent now. If students kind of go to a room or whatever, and they're going to go for it. They're not evil. They're responding to a symptom of the market, and that is lack of supply. And you're now pitting renting families with students.
And in the East End, now you can't just put it on the private sector. I would think the ratio of private sector housing for students far surpasses the housing that's provided through the college. But even as such, we still see, if you look going back a term or two, we had rules put in place where no second suites were allowed to be built in East End Barrie. We had a recent attempt to have absentee landlords in the East End, and only specifically in the East End, in that particular ward, have to be licensed. And it was realized that this was going to cost far more than anticipated, and thereby, have a lot of landlords get out of the game or not get into the game, which would just make that even more challenging. I believe that the college personally should be providing and should step up, just as you've said. And the
Mike, I think
it's tough.
I think honestly that the heart of it, though, is first of all that motion that came forward was absolutely ridiculous, and I'm glad that council came to its senses and put a stop to that. So congratulations, kudos where they're due, and I really do tip my hat to council for that.
I think it was unanimous there.
Oh,
other than the mover of the motion.
That's okay. The reality is, though, that one would say now that we have a very gentle and temporary reprieve in the demand for housing, and you may call it student housing if you want to, isn't now the perfect time to be actually getting a shovel in the ground and making things happen, so that when we do come back to more ideal and full capacity, we're prepared for it? Because at the heart of the problem is not just the number of units available, but the complaint from the neighbors, and the complaint probably from those who are leasing these properties or these units and rooms, is the quality or the sanitary element or the cleanliness or the safety and security of the type of housing being provided. Is it suitable? And I think the unanimous decision on that so far is not really. Awkward pause.
Oh, was that a statement or a question?
It's a statement, but I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, is that not what the pulse is saying?
Absolutely, Arif. Here's the thing. Buildings don't go up overnight. Now is the time to start the process for applications, zoning, financing, and building. Because when demand picks up, we want those units to be ready for getting filled and to address the need. And here's the thing. I am not buying the fact that that vacancies are soft right now. There is such a backlog of demand that the college was just used to the neighborhood absorbing the students into the neighborhood. We're not trying to get back to 2014 levels of disagreements in the East End. We're trying to get back to the 1990s levels of supply and demand. We're not trying to go back to the property standard issues and the complaints of the mid-2000s. We have a lot of units to build. The private market is not building them for various reasons. There's no large parcels of land, for example. Developers don't like to do land assemblies. They don't like to take that risk. And the college has plentiful land on campus that we can work within the confines of the law strategically to help them achieve this if they're concerned about red tape or delays. And frankly, we love the college. They're a great support of the local economy and they add to the fabric of Barrie. But if they feel that we should write checks for them, like the $5 million check we wrote for them a couple of years ago of property taxpayer dollars to expand their capital operations, then they need to meet us with capital commitments about expanding their on-campus student housing.
Well, the same
Right.
could be said about the hospital, but let me change this direction just a little bit. And that is that you mentioned that housing and rentals in the South End is just not feasible. And I would absolutely 100% agree with you. The other challenge I would say is Barrie's East End is a beautiful area. I mean, there is an incredible mix and range of homes and homeowners and neighborhoods within there. And I think that the biggest fear from those who have a long time vested interest in their city and their community is that, as you called it earlier, urban sprawl, but if you will, rental sprawl from the college. If we were to be proactive and build supportive or purpose-built housing in the vicinity of the college and go up and out a little bit in terms of density, we could stop that. But there has been conversation recently, for example, if you look at Bayfield area, as long as transit is supportive, and I think it would be, that you can start seeing some conversions of residential over retail in the mall district. And what are your thoughts on that?
Building up Bayfield is a vision that I am welcoming, and that should have happened years ago as well. The reality of building condos and retail, as you discussed, fronting Bayfield, where the parking lots are now, and putting the parking either in the back through demolition or through retrofitting is exactly what we need to do. That kind of density is going to not annoy or concern as many people because it's on a main corridor. Transit can support it. Capacity can be designed in a way that can support it. And the development charges that we're going to get from those units and the density is going to allow us to catch up on the infrastructure gap that we have right now, which for those at home, basically we're not fixing roads as quickly as we need to fix them before they keep getting worse. That's like making minimum payments on your credit card and the balance actually somehow goes higher or doesn't go as much as you want down. And closing the gap means increasing densities on roads such as Bayfield. If a portion of that is for student housing, I think that is just outside an ideal radius. But regardless, more units for the private sector, for non-students and students alike is going to help the affordability of rents, home prices, and our infrastructure gap.
Mike, we got to go to break. Tell us where we're going to come back to after the break.
Well, when we do come back, there are some other issues around the table at council we're going to touch on, and we'll leave that as a surprise for Sergio. Catch him off his guard. What do you think?
Sounds fantastic. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif on Rogers TV, Barrie. And once again, we've got Councillor Sergio Morales with us, Councillor for Ward 9. But as we mentioned earlier off the top of the show, Sergio Morales is also the chair of the Downtown Barrie BIA. And first off, Sergio, what is the BIA? Real quick. And what's the latest? Because you've actually done a rebrand.
Absolutely. So everybody has heard of a BIA. Few people really know what they do. Think of it as the marketing group. They're your ambassador group. They're your advocate group for the businesses of the downtown that since the 70s, when malls really came into place, they need somebody to go up to bat for them. They communicate the value of the unique stores, the unique experiences, the pedestrian aspect, the beautification, and the public realm that you really don't find anywhere else in a shopping district other than a downtown.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so you took it upon yourselves as an organization to do a rebrand. And along with that rebrand, many people there's a bit of chatter going on in the city right now about the painting of the building from something that was looking quite tired and ignored to a bright hot spot, that bright pink right beside Meridian Place downtown. What does that all have to do with this rebrand?
You know what? If you're going to walk, you walk. If you're going to run, you run. You don't wobble. And the BIA, Downtown Barrie BIA, is here to make a splash. We're here to show Barrie that we're going to do things differently. And we've heard them loud and clear. We are done with the distractions. We are here to help them businesses recover through COVID. We're here to activate Dunlop Street and Meridian Place. And we're here to deliver and give residents a reason to go downtown instead of other retail areas. And the rebrand is one of those steps, as well as the pink wall, which will attract people for the selfie destination, follows the principles of crime prevention through design, and will also incorporate a mural and artistic features that will really make Barrie stand out.
Yes, and one project that's been ongoing for some time and quite successfully is Open Air Dunlop, and that is, the weekends through the warmer months, the streets are closed to traffic, and people just pile into the downtown. I've always thought that this was something that could be successful in those warmer months, running 7 days a week. Is that something that we could still see? Because I think when we began this as a weekend thing, part of it was it being a pilot to determine whether or not it could survive as a Monday to Sunday event.
The answer is yes. So here's what we need for that vision that you have, Mike. We need thorough, detailed, and proper consultation with the membership. I don't mean send an email and hope that they respond. I mean hit every door, track them again, and get their explicit opinions for good data. Number two, we need to make sure the logistics works. So there's a lot of businesses on Dunlop Street that take their inventory, their supplies, or sending out their food and their items from Dunlop Street. So you can't take a FedEx truck or a UPS truck or a Cisco truck necessarily through the back alley. So we need to work out those logistics and details, because the BIA is downtown Barrie BIA is not going to do this and then think about that after the fact. We're going to make sure we do it properly. And if that's centralized pickup and drop off points or some other logistics, once we get those things implemented, we are moving closer to that vision of either 24/7 shutdown for the summer months or 24/7 shutdown for the summer months for 3 days of the 7 days of the week.
Okay.
And we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, and one of those logistic items that comes up again and again from downtown business owners is having adequate parking. Just as a broad-based question, does the downtown of Barrie have significant or adequate parking to deal with the traffic that would come through on the best day during open air downtown?
Yes. The spots on Dunlop Street that were sacrificed part of the road made absolutely no impact. We saw thousands of more people per weekend that we wouldn't have seen. And this goes back to the notion, we all know it, people who follow urban design principles, people don't want to walk the block or two. They want to park right at the store where they're at.
Well, you don't get to do that at the mall.
Exactly. They only want that on Dunlop Street, but at the mall, they have no issue on Black Friday or on a busy holiday parking closer to Bayfield and then walking the 800 meters to the 400 meters to the building and 800 meters from within the mall, because it's the psychology of it. And guess what? That's human psychology. And the downtown Barrie BI is going to be working incredibly aggressive to push forward marketing campaigns with wayfinding signage. That is in your face and says, you know what, there's a Collier Parkade waiting for your car. You know what, there's a Chase McGreckin parking lot down the road to really move the needle on this. So hopefully we can help our merchants.
Yeah, you need to create.
If there's an app that can be developed, which I know that there is, it can tell you how many spots are available in any one of the lots. You can do all of that. But the reality is, as well, is that there was a concern from some of the retailers that, oh my gosh, if you close off my street, I'm going to lose all of my business. And the reality is, nobody in their car driving by your storefront is actually shopping. If you had people congregating and walking and doing exactly what the malls count on, which is a full house of pedestrians, the longer you are there hanging out in the area, the more likely you are to spend an additional dollar.
Yeah. And my experience has been where it's been done right and where it's been successful in other municipalities, the mindset shifts from that one store or that one service being your destination to that entire street, that entire thing being the destination viewed as a whole. When you go to the mall, if you can't park as close as possible to the store you need to visit, that's not the issue, because chances are you're going through the whole mall. And I would love to see people coming to the downtown knowing that they're not just there to go into that one particular store, but it's going to be an event and the whole.
We're pushing on time. Sergio, what are your thoughts? You've got some demolition going on down there, and you've got some new buildings that are going to start to take shape. How's this going to impact us?
We are going to add more residents to the downtown core. We're going to get more eyes on the street. We're going to give people cool, quirky reasons, whether it's public art, whether it's promotions, whether it's programming. We're going to make downtown Barrie an unforgettable experience where residents do not question it. And the downtown for the next couple of years is going to be unrecognizable. And we hope that Barrie's ready for it.
Thank you, Sergio. It's been great information, but we are out of time. We will have you back in future. Thank you for tuning in to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif.